All right, good morning. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show as we get things rolling on February the 25th, Tuesday morning at roughly 10:30. We're going to talk a little bit about Brandon Aiyuk. We're going to talk a little bit about the 49ers, the wide receiver position, and exactly what it all means. What does it all mean? Let's go right now. All right, welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show. I'm Larry Krueger. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. I'm going to stop by and say hello to my man, Anthony Catania, who's the owner of Sharp Corners, later this week. He's at 831-521-5264. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And this video, or I should say this live stream, because we're going live this morning, is brought to you by Mancini's Sleep World. Mancini's is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. I am loving my Mancini's bed, and if you want one as well, you want half off, or I should say 10% off. You're not getting half off. Click the link below. Go to sleepworld.com. Find a bed that works for you, whether you shop online or visit in store at any of the Mancini locations. Type in the code KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off. That's right. If the mattress is $5,000, you're going to save $500. Again, that's KRUG10, KRUG10, and you'll get 10% off in any of Mancini's locations, as well as their online location at sleepworld.com. Make sure you type in that code KRUG10 or you won't save the 10%. Once again, KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. All right. Good morning, guys. Good morning to everybody as people are piling into the room one after another, and we're going to talk a little 49er football. What led to this live stream out of nowhere? Well, it's a very good question, and I'm going to give you, hopefully, a very good answer. And I'm going to share the screen to do that. I'm going to go to my friend Coach Yak's Twitter, and he has a report up from Diana Rossini. He says, Brandon Aiyuk, this is a quote from Diana Rossini, Brandon Aiyuk is a player that a lot of teams had interest in before he signed that deal last year. Remember, he signed that 4-year, $120 million deal with the Niners. Some teams are now poking around to see if the 49ers would be willing to deal Brandon Aiyuk. Oh, wow. It doesn't seem like it makes any sense. Let's just right out of the chute. I mean, you sign this guy. How could this possibly make sense? I mean, it just doesn't seem like it does. It just doesn't seem like a natural fit for them to move him. They just signed him. So we'll stop sharing the screen there. And then we'll go back and we'll share the screen on another page here. And that is the contract of Brandon Aiyuk. Let's see. There we go. From Over the Cap. There we go. So this is Brandon Aiyuk's contract details. He's a 27-year-old wide receiver. 6'1", 206, Arizona State. Look at all the stuff. 2025 salary cap, $10.7 million. Blah, blah, blah. Contract value, $120 million. $30 million APY. 45 fully guaranteed. So, and here's the contract right here by years. And over here is the dead money. And if you do a trade pre-June 1st. So let's just say they traded him between now and the draft, because that's what people are asking. Oh, they're going to trade him? Will they trade him? Who's sniffing around? It's a $41.2 million cap hit. Huge, huge cap hit. So I can't imagine that's going to happen. I really can't imagine the 49ers would wind up moving Brandon Aiyuk when he's got a $41.2 million dead cap hit if you trade him this year, and that's before June 1st. If you trade him after June 1st, it's a $30.5 million dead cap hit for 2025. So, it just seems like very unlikely. Seems incredibly unlikely that they would move him. Now, there were reports when they signed him that the Niner ownership was not happy with the deal for some reason. Either they didn't like Aiyuk, they didn't like the deal, but there have been reports that they were unhappy when the Niners ultimately signed this deal. They were sounded like on the verge of trading him last year. Shanahan ran upstairs and was like, no, don't trade him, don't trade him. They didn't trade him, they signed him, they extended him. And when you look at the acceleration of dead money that would hit the Niners' books, as I just stated, over the cap says it's a $41.255 million hit if you trade him before June 1st, and $30.5 million if you trade him after June 1st. So I think it's pretty safe to say he's not going anywhere. And then the question also is, who wants this player? I mean, and why would you want him? He just had a massive knee injury. Some people think that he'll be back by week 1. I don't. I think he's going to be out till November. But some people think that he's going to heal faster and that he'll be back out there sooner. Then the question is he diminished? And, how could he not be diminished? He had a major injury, tore the meniscus, tore the ACL, tore either the MCL or the PCL. He tore 2 major ligaments and the meniscus. So isn't he going to be diminished? So, I mean, what are people even sniffing around the Niners for? It does make you wonder. It does make you wonder. And then what would the 49ers even get in return for, a wide receiver coming off a major injury who just signed a contract extension? There would be a cap hit, and then I got to think that you're only going to get probably, what do you think you would get? I mean, a late 3rd-round pick? Maybe. Probably more like a couple of day 3 picks. How eager are you to move off of the player? Do you want to move? Are the Niners so eager to move off of this player at this point that they're willing to take a big cap hit to do so and take less in a trade? I don't know. I really don't know. And then there's so many different players out there that potentially could be traded on the other end. If it was the right combination of players who had the right kinds of contracts, I mean, maybe they would take a player in a pick. I don't know. I really don't know. My first thought when I saw this was they're not trading him. They're not trading him. They just signed him. There would be a huge acceleration onto the cap of monies owed him and would create a large dead cap hit. And then that was before I even went to over the cap. Now that I've gone to over the cap and I've seen it's $40 million plus, what are we talking about? You can take a $40 million cap hit in the year that you're going to extend your quarterback? I mean, how to not win the Super Bowl by the San Francisco 49ers. You extend your quarterback who's making $900,000, pay him, $50 million or more per year, and then the receiver that you just signed, trade him and take a huge cap hit for doing so. So I don't know what to make of it. I would say it's probably much ado about nothing. I mean, I don't want to sit there and say, there's absolutely nothing going on here, but I don't see how there could be anything going on here. I don't see how this could in any way benefit the 49ers. The dead cap hit is going to be huge, $41 million. I mean, so they just went through the song and dance to sign him, and now they're going to eat $41 million of dead cap and move him. I don't know. I mean, it just seems unlikely. But there are teams around the league that have a lot of cap room. There are teams around the league that might be really in love with one of these players, Deebo or Aiyuk. This doesn't even get into the Deebo stuff. I don't understand why anybody would necessarily want to trade for Deebo either. But this would be major if the 49ers divested themselves of both of their starting wide receivers in the same offseason. And then who would they go to? I mean, what, you think you're going to win a Super Bowl with? I'll say it right now. You're not winning the Super Bowl with Pearsall, J.J. Kittle, and CMC. That's not it. That's not going to get it done. I'll say that right now. I mean, Cowing did hardly anything last year. Pearsall came on at the end of the year. I think we have reasonable expectations to believe that he'll be significantly better this year. But Jawan Jennings runs in the 4.7s. And Pearsall by himself is going to replace Deebo and Aiyuk. I don't think that's very likely. So there's going to have to be another shoe that drops here. There has to be a receiver coming in. The 49ers need a receiver. You know, they really need a receiver. Now, they could get a receiving tight end and go 12 personnel. They could get a running back. It's an awesome running back draft and flex out CMC. Just say, hey, CMC, you're not going to be a running back. We're going to line you up in the slot most of the time. We're going to use you as a receiver most of the time. And it would save wear and tear on CMC. So you could do that. I mean, that would make sense. Save a little wear and tear on CMC, play him as a receiver. So, it's the whole thing seems really, really unlikely. It really does. It seems very unlikely that the 49ers would in any way, move off of Brandon Aiyuk. But their receiving core, and our friend Kyle Madsen from Niners Wire wrote this article as well, that the Niner receiving core is in a strange place. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, we all expect Deebo to be released or traded before that roster bonus comes due March 22nd. So that's what we're expecting from Deebo. And then, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what to expect from Brandon Aiyuk, period. Whether he's here or not here. If he's not here, I mean, how does that work? And if he is here, how does he bounce back from a major knee injury that he sustained on October 20th of this last year against Kansas City? So, rock solid JJ is always going to be there. Jawan Jennings is just going to keep doing what Jawan Jennings does. And that's just play with a ton of heart, and he's going to play. Yeah, I mean, he's going to play. Pearsall and Cowing, I think there's reasonable expectation to believe that they'll be better in year 2 than they were in year 1. But how much better? How much better? I mean, neither of those guys got a lot of run this year. So how much better are they going to be in year 2? And then, do the Niners want to make an investment in free agency? What are you going to do? Trade for T. Higgins? Try to get a Devontae Adams? There's not a lot of great receivers. You're going to go after Chris Godwin? Or do you really think you could, somehow replace Deebo and Aiyuk with secondary-type receivers, Rondale Moore, Tutu Atwell, guys like that, McCole Hardman? Do you really think that's going to work? So it's going to be really interesting. I don't know what to project for Pearsall and Cowing. I don't know if Ayuk's going to be healthy or not. I don't know if Deebo's going to be on the team or not. Doesn't sound like it. So what do you got? What do you got? You don't have a lot at receiver. So it really does make receiver the ultimate question mark, going into this year. We know they need to improve their offensive line. We know they need to improve their defensive line. We know they need to add a tight end. We know they need to add a free safety. We know they need to add a linebacker or two. I mean, they have a number of needs. But receiver has always been that, and then there's receiver. Well, let's see. You have Deebo, but do you? Oh, but you have Aiyuk. But do you? It's like they spent almost all last year in the offseason talking to all these different teams about trading Aiyuk, and then they opted not to. The exact quote from Rossini is, Brandon Aiyuk is a player that a lot of teams had interest in before he signed that deal last year. Remember, he signed that 4-year, $120 million deal. There are some teams poking around now to see if the 49ers would be willing to deal Aiyuk. So, I mean, he was on his way to Pittsburgh. And Shanahan said, no, don't trade him to Pittsburgh. You have to meet his demands. And it didn't sound like the Niners ownership or the front office necessarily wanted to meet his demands. It sounded like maybe they were more in the camp of, nah, let's move him. So then they sign him. He doesn't look like the player that he was from a year ago. He struggled early in the year. Then he went down with a crushing injury. I mean, how many receivers in their history ever have an injury that tears the ACL, the MCL, and the meniscus? And that's what happened to him. He tore the ACL, the MCL, and the meniscus. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, even with the cap hit, if you believe that this guy's a diva, then maybe you want to move away even now. If you believe this guy's going to be diminished and can't handle, or isn't going to be the same player that he was, maybe you want to take that cap hit right now and turn the page. So it is interesting. I mean, the Niners wanted, they supposedly they either wanted to. I mean, they did pay Aiyuk $30 million per year. Now we can debate: did Lynch want it? Did Jed want it? Did Parag want it? We don't know. But I would imagine if they were hedging about paying a healthy Aiyuk, now that he's blown out his knee and is almost assuredly going to be diminished and miss time here in 2025, I'm sure they don't want to pay him that $30 million per year even more. So, and then, Shanahan, if Shanahan really was the one who wanted to keep him, are they going to listen to Shanahan? Or are they going to say, you know what, we're not listening to Shanahan? So, I don't know. I mean, it's like, first of all, if I could do a redo, I would. And I think if the 49ers could do a redo, they would. If the 49ers could rip up the Brandon Aiyuk $30 million a year contract right now, they absolutely would. They absolutely would. Because he's just coming off of a crushing injury. And who knows what level he's going to return at. And it was an awful lot of money anyway. They're on the verge of paying Brock Purdy and making him, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. This offseason, we may see George Kittle get a big money long-term extension as well. And I'm sure the Niners are sitting there with buyer's remorse on Aiyuk going, man, we should have traded this guy. They probably would have gotten, who knows, James Daniels and a first-round pick or something like that from the Steelers. Something like that. I don't think it would have been anything. Maybe it would have been James Daniels and a second-round pick. What would they get now? I mean, if the Steelers still want Brandon Aiyuk, what would you get? And then can you get a receiver coming back? Can you get a Pickens coming back? I mean, I don't know. And the question is, should the Niners take, and that's the question I'll throw to you guys, should the Niners take a big cap hit this year and move on from Brandon Aiyuk and hit the reset at wide receiver? Or should they hold on to him, let him rehab, maybe get him back, and who knows, week 1, maybe week 8. You may miss half the year. He may miss half the year. I mean, a lot of people are more optimistic than I am on the injury, but I mean, he blew out 3 major parts of the knee and he did it in October. He's going to be back in September. It's not going to be a full calendar year. I would say you're probably looking at 12 to 15 months. So I would say he's probably back in late October to early November at the soonest. And even then, at what level does he return? Does he return as the Brandon Aiyuk that we knew, or does he return as some diminished player? So, this is a very interesting time for the 49ers. They're trying to pay Brock Purdy. They're trying to probably extend George Kittle. They're trying to have a major offseason that vaults them back into the Super Bowl conversation. And then they're trying to move on from Deebo. And I don't think they're trying to move on from Aiyuk, but I do think that it's worthy of a conversation. Why? Because he might not be the player that he was. I mean, he had a major, major injury. And that's the other thing. Why would anybody? I'd love to know what these other teams are saying to the Niners when they're, kicking tires on Brandon Aiyuk. Hey, we'll give you a 5th-round pick. We'll give you a 4th-round pick. I mean, I can't imagine they're saying, oh, yeah, we'll give you anything close to fair compensation. So you're going to, to move off of Aiyuk is going to require a huge dead cap hit this year, which, the cap can be massaged and you can play with the numbers. And there's enough players where that's not the death knell on their season. Like, it's not like, oh, if they trade Aiyuk, they cannot win this year. No, they could. They could still win. But it's going to take some cap gymnastics and some moving some money around. And it's also going to take a sizable investment in another receiver, because I don't think you're necessarily going to be able to do it this year. You're going to be able to run it back this year and win the Super Bowl with Ricky Pearsall, JJ, and Jacob Cowing as your top 3 receivers. I just don't see it. I don't see that. And so, but then again, what's Aiyuk going to be? Is Aiyuk going to be the player that he was? That seems unlikely. So maybe this is the right time. I mean, you don't know what he's going to be, but nobody else knows what he's going to be. You don't know how he's going to come off this injury, but nobody else knows how he's going to come off this injury. As I said initially, to me, any deal involving Aiyuk seems like ill-advised and not in the cards, just because of the $41 million cap hit. But we don't know how motivated the Niners are. We don't know how motivated they are to move off of the player. For all we know, they hate the player. It was a very weird summer. Not only did they pay Aiyuk, things didn't seem to be hunky-dory after they paid him. I mean, they paid Aiyuk, and yet then, you still have him in Shanahan kind of butting heads over what color shorts he's wearing at practice. And I don't know. It just seemed like there was some friction there, even after he signed the contract. It wasn't like, oh, kumbaya, yeah, this is all the things that you say in contract negotiations, but we love him and he loves us. Well, if they loved him and he loved them, it sure didn't seem that way. So now the question is, if you think that Aiyuk is just, going to be back and it's just a matter of weeks before he's back, and you think he's going to be back at something close to what he was, I can't see the wisdom in moving him at all. But if you are a believer that this guy's going to be diminished and you have a team that's willing to offer you some compensation to get off of him, and you think he's going to be just a shadow of what he was, which is possible. He's a major injury. He's a wide receiver that tore the ACL, MCL, and meniscus all at once. It didn't look that terrible initially, but when you see the destruction that was done there, I mean, it's a major injury for a receiver. So if you really believe that he's not going to be the player that he was, who knows? Maybe you do this elaborate song and dance and huge cap dance to move money around to make it as painless as possible. But either way, you're taking a big cap hit. So I don't know that, I don't know what the Niners are going to do. Are they going to move off of Deebo? It really seems like it. Are they going to move off of Aiyuk? Sounds like they might be open to it. I mean, do teams just call the 49ers out of the blue and be like, or did somebody put out some feeler? Hey, you know what? I think Aiyuk might be available in San Francisco if you give him a call and make the right kind of offer. Really? They just signed him. And everybody who's looking to acquire him is looking to steal him. They're not looking to give the Niners fair market value. They're looking to steal him. But I'll say this, just looking at, this upcoming draft and the class of receivers, it's not a vintage year for receivers. So what do you do? What do you do? If it's not a vintage year for receivers, if you need a receiver, and it seems like there's a bunch of teams in pro football that seemingly do, what do you do? I was just looking at the Kuiper mock. He has Tetaroa McMillan, the top receiver, going 17, and he has Luther Burden falling out of the first round. Now, other mocks have both of them going in the top 10. So I don't know, but Kuiper is usually pretty dialed in on this stuff. He says Tetaroa McMillan's going to fall to like 17. Like I think he had him going to the Chargers or somebody. I forget what team he had him going to, but he had him falling into the teens as the number one wide receiver. And then they have Luther Burden. I looked at the rest of the first round. They didn't even have Luther Burden in the first round. So that's interesting. So in other words, at least according to Mel, who's Mr. Draft, there isn't a first-round receiver outside of Tetaroa McMillan. It's a one-receiver first round. I think Burden is spectacular, but maybe others don't. And McMillan is an interesting prospect. His workout this week in Mobile will go a great distance to kind of determining his value. What kind of 40 does he run? Some people think he's going to run in the mid 4.5s. He runs in the mid 4.5s, he might fall down. Other people that I've talked to, we had Ryan Fowler on from the Draft Network. He said his sources tell him that Tetaroa McMillan's been running in the sub 4.4s at 6'4", 210 pounds. That would probably almost guarantee if he's running 4.37 that he's probably going in the top 10. So the wide receiver draft is not a vintage year. It's not an incredible year. And there's a lot of speculation on even the top guys. So if you're looking at Brandon Aiyuk, maybe, if you need a receiver, maybe Brandon Aiyuk looks attractive to you. The rest of the draft as far as receivers, Emeka Egbuka has played at Ohio State for a long time. Matthew Golden had a really good year for Texas. Very good year. To me, I think you got to take a double look at him. Trey Harris from Ole Miss is a phenomenal receiver, converted quarterback in high school. And he was Malik Neighbors' quarterback, believe it or not, in high school. And now he's one of the best receivers in the country. Lane Kiffin said he's the best receiver in the country. He might be. Trey Harris is really, really special. But it falls off the floorboards at that point. Isaiah Bond is really fast. He's going to run a great 40. Jack Betch from TCU and Savion Williams from TCU, depending on how they work out, are really viable. Betch, whose brother died in that tragedy in New Orleans, was like the story of the week in Mobile. I mean, he's 6'1", he's 215 pounds, and he attacks the ball, and he's a really interesting slot receiver. But how fast is he? And we'll find out. And then Savion Williams is 6'4", 225, high school quarterback, wildcat quarterback, kind of a Deebo type, really, jack of all trades at 6'4", 225. But what's he going to run? Some people think he's going to run in the 4.6s. If he runs in the 4.6s, he's probably a fifth-round pick. If he runs in the 4.4s, like some people believe, he might go in the second or third round. So other than those guys, some people compare Jalen Royals to Deebo from Utah State, but once again, it's a huge step up in competition. I like Ricky White III from UNLV quite a bit. He blocked 4 punts this year, but he's very skinny. And I don't know, like lots of rookie receivers, the physicality of the NFL could be too much. Theo Wees from Missouri is a deep threat. He's interesting. Arian Smith from Georgia is probably going to light the combine on fire later this week. He's probably going to run the 4.2s. Probably going to be the fastest receiver there is. Bay Area fans know the name Nick Nash from San Jose State, prolific receiver, but is he a pro athlete? That's kind of a question. And then after that, there's a few guys here or there. I mean, I like Rock Taylor from Memphis. I like Elijah Badger from Florida. This kid Chisholm from Eastern Washington is kind of interesting. Daquan Felton from Vatech is big and fast, 6'4", 222, and runs fast. Bo Collins from Notre Dame, the Clemson transfer. Some people like him. But it's not a vintage. Jordan Watkins, I think, is kind of a sleeper from Ole Miss. But we're talking about a 7th-round player. And then you look at there's also slot receivers, guys who are really tiny. And and Tez Johnson from Oregon, Xavier Restrepo from Miami, Jalen Noel from Iowa State. These are all good receivers. Jamal Pritchett from South Alabama, the transfer. The USC transfer, Mario Williams, who went to Tulane, is a really good player. He's a really interesting slot receiver. And there's some smaller school guys that will come out of the woodworks and some FCS guys who will come out of the woodworks. But it's not like last year's draft. Last year's draft, you had all kinds of receivers. And it's just not, you just don't have that. I mean, if you went to last year's rankings at wide receiver, it was amazing. You had Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey. I believe all those guys had 1,000 yards. Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, Donajai Mitchell, Jalen Polk, Malachi Corley, Jalen McMillan went to Tampa. He had a really good finish to the year. Javon Baker. Luke McCaffrey. There were a bunch of receivers in last year's draft. Last year's draft was much more of a receiver-heavy draft than this year's draft. So that's the question. Do the Niners, in a year where they're trying to win the Super Bowl, in a year where they're trying to run it back and really, get in the mix, a year after they probably should have traded Brandon Aiyuk, and gotten, who knows, maybe a first or second round pick and a player, maybe a couple picks and a player. Now, a year later, after the contract, they're going to take a $41 million cap hit and send him away for a fourth round pick, send him away for a late third round pick. It really depends how much they don't like him, how much they think he's diminished, and what they think they can get. And what they think they can get out of him this year, production-wise, and what they think they can get for him in a potential trade. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a fit. It doesn't seem like it's even a reasonable possibility that they would be able to move Brandon Aiyuk. All right, let's hit the chat. Let's see what people have to say. And there's always people in the chat. The great thing about the YouTube audience is that you got a lot of really knowledgeable people who know the Niners really well. All right. Let's see. We got this one from Aiyuk and Deebo gone. And some emoji of pink crap. I'm not sure what the hell that is. Kieran Pettiford, trade them both with fire emojis. Kieran also says, hit that like and subscribe button. Yeah, by the way, everybody hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps more people find the stream and the overall YouTube algorithm. And if you hit subscribe and you hit that notification bell, you can be a subscriber to the Krug Show, and every single time we go live, you don't have to miss a minute of the action. You'll get just a little, of course it's free, you'll get a little alert on your phone. Hey, Krug's going live, and you can jump in, and it gives you a little alert. By the way, we're sitting, as we speak, at 55,333 subs. So sometimes I forget to say like and subscribe. But please do. If you've been watching the content and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We've picked up 1,000 subs in the last month. We're at 55,333 subs, and we've had almost 2 million views of our content in the last month alone as well. So thanks to Kev, who's doing an amazing job running the channel. Jan Shozla, good. Trade his documentary making ass. That's right, I forgot. Aiyuk made a documentary about his contract thing, which just seemed so self-serving. Though I'll say this, though, that whole thing about, hey, man, Jaden Daniels is the man. He can help me take my game to the next level. Well, you know what? I kind of poo-pooed that when I heard it because I'm like, man, he's really talking up this rookie quarterback. But the rookie quarterback had a great year, and he really does look amazing. So maybe we should have given Aiyuk a little bit more on that one about Jaden Daniels. We got this one from Joe Muzzy. More Grant Cohn BS drama. I don't think Grant started this. He says nobody trades for players that are hurt. And what would it get the Niners? A third, a fourth, not to mention the cap hit, not happening. Yeah, no, Joe, I think I think your chat here kind of represents kind of my whole take on this thing, which is I'm not, you sound more mad about it. I'm not mad about it. But I think we see it the same way. I mean, you got a significant cap hit and you're going to trade your star receiver for a third or fourth. But I guess the question is this: if somebody's willing to give you a third or a fourth and take this player off your hands, if you do believe that this guy's diminished and he's not going to be the same player again, this might be a time to get off him, even with the cap hit, even with the unfavorable trade terms. It might be the time to jump off if you can. If there's somebody out there that's saying, hey, you know what, we'll give you our late third-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. Yeah, you got to take this big cap hit. Well, you can always move the cap numbers around. You can always offset things and move money around. So I'm not as worried about the cap hit because the cap hit could be played with, toyed with. You can move money around on the cap, but that, do you want to move off of Aiyuk for nominal compensation? And then, by the way, I mean, are you if you're going to take a cap hit to move Deebo, you're going to take a bigger cap hit to move Aiyuk. Who's going to be the receiver? Can you add a receiver? Maybe they want to add a receiver in the draft. Maybe they're in love with Teteroa McMillan, and they're going to take him at 11. I'll say this, based on the Kuiper mock, which Kuiper's generally pretty dialed in on where the players are going to go, the fact that he had Luther Burden not in the first round would make me, as a 49er fan, go, So I could trade down from 11 into the 20s, probably get myself an extra 2, a 3, a 5, a 7. I could get 3 or 4 extra picks, set myself up for a draft bonanza, and somewhere in the mid-20s take Luther Burden to start my draft, or make the kind of trade where you could get a day 2 pick and go with an offensive or defensive lineman in the first round and come back for a guy like Luther Burden in round 2. It's pretty intriguing. I'll tell you right now, I'd rather have Luther Burden than Aiyuk or Deebo right now. I would if I could get Luther Burden, I would trade either of those guys. Heck, I would probably trade both of those guys. Knowing what I know about the injury to Aiyuk and knowing what I know about, Deebo's career path and what he's got left. Yeah, if I could get Luther Burden by moving these 2 receivers, I absolutely would. Charles Lemp. The only team I know that would trade for a hurt player would be the 49ers. LOL. Mike D in the house. Pig in a pickle. Thank you, Mike. Kevin Allen. Make the trade. Do it. Mike D. Aiyuk for 2 first-rounders. Mike, looks like Mike just came back from the dispensary. 2 first-rounders? No. You're not going to get 2 second-rounders. You're not getting 2 third-rounders for Aiyuk at this point, which is probably why he's not going to be dealt. Jan Choslo. Wait, Grant is the source? No, Grant is not the source. Diana Rossini is the source. I read it off Coach Yak's Twitter, but Diana Rossini is the source. David Sluggy Sports Hayden says, pig in a pickle. Thank you, David. Thanks for being a proud sponsor. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks for you for shouting them out. Digital Drew's in the house. Hopefully things are warming up in Chi-Town. He says, hey, Larry. Glad I caught a midday stream. Not lazy at all. We were going to do just a video, but then I'm like, I said to Kev, let's just do a stream. We'll do a stream. Streams are, do even better than the videos. So we'll do a stream. Why not? Anthony Bartolucci. I wonder who leaked this. Was it Kyle, Lynch, or Jed? That is interesting. I would like to know that as well. Where is this story? We know it's coming from Diana Rossini, okay, but it's got to be coming from somebody else. Who's that other person, and what do they have to gain? Kevin Allen says Grant's in Indy. Yes, he is. We streamed yesterday. Brian D's in the house. He says, "What's up, Larry? Let's go Niners." What's up, Brian D? Appreciate you, bro. David says the source is Diana Rossini from The Athletic. Yeah, I think we've established that. But the question is, who told her that? She didn't invent it. I'm pretty sure she didn't make it up. Banana says Aiyuk still wants to play with Jaden Daniels. There's another kind of little interesting nugget in here, I thought, from Matty Barrows. And let me see if I can call up Matt's Twitter here. First, you got to be able to spell Matt. I'm pretty sure there's no S after the M, so I got to redo this. All right, here we go. Type in Matt Barrows. And Matt put out a tweet. Matt went up to Adam Peters at the Combine and said, asked him about Deebo, not about Aiyuk, asked him about Deebo. And then he tweeted out, Adam Peters on if Washington has had contact with Deebo, his agent. No comment. He's on a different team, said Peters. But then Matt says, but he has permission to seek a trade. Peters then was ushered away by PR staff of the Commanders. And then Matt said, I tried. So there you go. That's interesting. Just the Commanders do have a ton of money on the cap. And from what I've read, they're looking to make a big splash. Making a big splash in free agency. So, or maybe even in a trade, but they're looking to make a big splash. And the big splash that was referenced was Myles Garrett. But, we do know that that Peters was here and he knows the receivers pretty well, and it wouldn't be totally crazy to think that he would want one of them. But once again, it's hard to see any of these deals coming together because we're talking about cap hits and reduced value. It's like the Niner fans have one thought of what Deebo and Aiyuk are worth, and in reality, they're worth a whole lot less. So it's like I've heard, I've got buddies who are like, hey, Krug, they just need to move Deebo for a third and a fifth. And I'm like, dude, he's a unique player. He's a one of one, but I don't think they're getting a day 2 pick for Deebo Samuel at this point. I don't think they're getting anything. I said if they get anything as far as draft pick compensation, it'll be like a mid-day 3 pick, like a 5th-round pick. Why? Just because the only reason anybody would give you anything was to jump the line. It's not about, we'll give you fair value. It's just like, hey, you're going to get rid of this guy, and we want to get him in front of the other teams, so we'll offer you a 5th-round pick so we can jump the line. That's the only thing I could see on Deebo. I don't think anybody's going to give you anything that's really valuable. But heck, the Niners drafted George Kittle in the 5th round. They took Talanoa Hufanga in the 5th round. They took DJ Jones in the 6th round. They took Brock Purdy in the 7th round. So I'll say this. Any pick you can get for a player is generally worth it. Poker Face said, I said to trade Aiyuk last year before the draft. They should have listened to you. Invader 49er, trade Aiyuk once he reestablishes his draft stock and recycle the position through the draft as its market has outpaced its value. Do not pay $30 to $40 million for a wide receiver ever again. I think Invader 49er is really smart. He's really smart. And I think I agree with him totally. Now, as far as trade him when he reestablishes his draft market, I don't think he will. You could be waiting for 2 years on that. And at that point, I think his value goes down dramatically. Right now with both Deebo and definitely with Aiyuk, there's unknown, right? So you knew what he was, and the only thing is we don't know what he is. We know what he was, but we don't know what he is. And because of that, maybe you could get somebody, if you're willing to take the cap hit, and once again, $40 million cap hit, But if you're willing to take the cap hit to move off of the player, what are you going to get? I would say, Deebo's going to bring you nothing more than a fifth, and that's only from a team that wants to jump the line. Otherwise, most teams are just going to wait for the Niners to release him. And I think Aiyuk is probably only going to bring a fourth. You're going to move your two starting wide receivers for a fourth and a fifth round draft choice? Teams screw up fourth and fifth round draft choices every day, all day. So that would be a risk. Mark Graves says, what happens to the roster if you get rid of Aiyuk? Well, what happens to the roster is that the 49ers are going to have Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, and Jacob Cowing, and open spots at wide receiver. They could go draft a couple, but rookie receivers don't do a whole lot. You could try to pick up a couple. There are some secondary free agents out there that, are not bad. Darius Slayton or something like that. I also kind of like Isaiah Hodgins, who they picked off the street. But, it would be, you're not replacing him with a like player, or a similar player. CT Niner says, Niner fans want Aiyuk gone. Is that true? Do Niner fans want Aiyuk gone? I get the sense that they're kind of at their breaking point with both Aiyuk and Deebo. It's like, both those guys have kind of proven that there's a diva side to their whole persona, and I don't know that rubs the fans right. But do Niner fans really want to move off of Aiyuk? I mean, I think everybody admired Aiyuk and for the the toughness that he demonstrated. And 2 years ago, man, I mean, I think of Aiyuk. I think of not this last year, but the year before in training camp, where he just every single ball that was in his vicinity, he caught. You threw it off the surface, he dove down and caught it. You threw it seemingly 10 yards and 10 feet in the air, he leaped over the crowd and caught it. I mean, 2 summers ago, I thought his training camp performance was spectacular. Spectacular. I mean, demonstrating a catch radius that's as big as almost anybody in the game. But then this year, he didn't look like the same player after he signed the deal, even before the injury. And if I were the 49ers, yeah, I'd be open-minded to moving off of him and taking a cap hit to move off of him, because I think you're going to be stuck holding the bag on a $30 million receiver who is not good enough to get you to where you want to go. That's my fear. And then it's going to be even worse. The vibes are going to be even worse if he comes out, he doesn't play half the year, then he does play, he's diminished. You got all this money on the line. I think Shanahan and Lynch could look really bad in the eyes of the ownership if he's a diminished player and let's just say I'm right and he misses, September and October, and he comes back in November and he's just kind of a diminished player. Well, they're going to look really bad. Now they're not going to look bad like, it wasn't their fault that he suffered the injury, but they invested in a player and they've got a sizable investment and he can't do what he used to do. And there's going to be a lot of criticism. And maybe they want to avoid that whole situation by moving off of him sooner, and maybe even at a loss. We got this one from Asics. People would rather trade for a receiver with one knee than Deebo. J. Frank Parnell. Deebo to Washington for Jonathan Allen, straight up. Oh, you kidding me? Do that in a second. I'd trade him straight up for McCaffrey's brother. You want Deebo? We'll take McCaffrey's brother. That's it. We'll take our chances. Standing firm. What have the Niners said? Well, the Niners haven't said anything. And Lynch talks tomorrow in Indy, and he will be asked this question. What's up with Deebo? What's up with Aiyuk? What's up with this teams looking at Aiyuk? I mean, I'm not going to be there asking the questions, but there'll be enough media people there who know what they're talking about, who will ask John Lynch some of these questions. So we are going to have some answers from John Lynch. I'm not sure answers, but we're going to have at least reaction to these stories from John Lynch within 24 hours. But standing firm, what have the Niners said? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. CT Niners says 66% want Aiyuk traded. Spy versus Spy says trade him. Invader 49er, I'm trading him pre-June 1st in 2027 for whatever I can get. Well, if you trade him pre-June 1st in 2027, you're still taking a $22.9 million cap hit. That's if you trade him in 27. So, I mean, yeah, right now it's 41. In 27, it will be 22.9. So you don't avoid the cap hit. You don't. Even if you wait, it lessens, but you don't avoid it. Charlie Higgs, it's too late to trade BA, guys. Yeah, I generally it is, but once again, we don't know what the offers are, and we don't know the Niners' motivation. You're right. I think Charlie's spot on here. But at the same time, we don't know how motivated the Niners are to move off of him. We don't. I mean, if they're super motivated to move off of him, they might be willing to take the cap hit. Let's see. Big T says, this dude, is that me, is acting like the Niners want to trade him over hearsay. I'm not saying the Niners want to trade him. I'm saying there's a report saying, a report coming out from Dino Rossini saying that teams have called the Niners asking if he is available. And I would imagine the answer is no. But, once again, there was a I don't know how I would describe it, an uneasiness, an awkwardness. Shanahan and him butted heads. I don't know how they feel about him. But if you told me that the Niner ownership group was staunchly against them signing Aiyuk to that contract, I wouldn't be surprised. And how motivated are they to get out from underneath it? I mean, Standing Firm says, if the Niners trade him, he'll be right up there with their biggest blunders. Oh, it will be. You can't sign a guy to that kind of an extension and a year later trade him and take a big cap hit and not have to, not have to lose face. You're going to lose face. Silas Copeland, Larry calling Grant a liar, LOL. What? Where did you get that? I'm not sure where you got that. MVP Purdy says, trade him and get your guy McMillan at 11. McMillan? Oh, you're talking about T-Mac. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you could, I'll say this, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I have no problem at all moving off of Aiyuk and Deebo at this point. It's not that I don't think they have any value. I do think they're good players. But I think both of them have played their best ball. I mean, Aiyuk, if Aiyuk were healthy, I wouldn't say that. But now that Ayuk's had a crushing, life-altering type injury, career-altering type injury, and Deebo's 28 going on 29, and he's run through people for his whole career, I think it's very safe to say that Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel have played their best football. Are they getting better? No. They're getting worse. So, yeah, if I could get off of these receivers and jump aboard the Luther Burden III train or jump aboard the Tetaroa McMillan train, yeah, I would do it. And, I brought this up last night on Niners Nightly on KNBR about I kind of think the Niners are in one of three modes at 11. I think they're either going to go offensive tackle, like a Kelvin Banks, a Membu from Missouri, somebody like that. I think Will Campbell's going to go top 10 in front of them, but like Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas was great this year. You could draft him, play him at left guard next to Trent Williams, and at the end of the year, you slide him out to Trent Williams' spot at left tackle. Kelvin Banks could replace Aaron Banks. Banks on Banks. Goodbye to Aaron, hello to Kelvin. That's one option. I love the film of Armand Membu. I mean, he looks great. He really looks great. Doesn't lunge, 330 pounds, super long arms. I don't know what his arm length is going to be, but it's going to be crazy long. This guy's got really long arms. He doesn't lunge. He's got great balance. He can play guard. He can play tackle. I love Armand Membu. And then Josh Simmons. A lot of people think that Josh Simmons from Ohio State would have gone top 5 if he didn't suffer the injury against Oregon. And he might be there for them at 11. So they could be staring at Banks and Membu and Simmons. The other guy that is going to have to be studied this week is Arianti Ursi, the offensive tackle for Minnesota. Why? He had somebody claims that he ran a 1.52 10-yard split at 6'6", 340. Brock Purdy ran 1.55. They're saying Arianti Ursi is quite a bit faster than Brock Purdy in the 10-yard split. I got to see that. I mean, everybody's got to see that. Somebody wrote an article this week, hey, if Arianti Ursi runs 1.52, scouts everywhere's, jaws are going to hit the ground. That is an unbelievable time, and it can't be right. But he's got to be a decent prospect if he's anywhere close to Brock Purdy's number. I'm a big fan of Emory Jones from LSU. I'm a big fan of Anthony Belton from NC State. Those guys are projected to go, more like in the 3rd round. Wyatt Milam from West Virginia, I think, is a good tackle. So there's, they may go to me in the 1st round. I think it's either Banks, Membu, or Simmons, probably at 11 if they go offensive tackle. If they go defensive tackle, maybe Mason Graham falls to them only because I don't think he's going to test all that well. But I think the logical thing is Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan, maybe in a little bit of a trade back. You trade from 11 to 15 and you draft Walter Nolan, or you trade from 11 to 15 and you draft Kenneth Grant. I think that is highly likely. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball, Kelvin Banks, Armand Membu, Josh Simmons, maybe this kid Ursi at 11. I think that's the decision crystallized in a nutshell. But then the wild card factor is wide receiver. That's the wild card factor. Now, why? Because of the Deebo situation, because of the Aiyuk situation, because of where the Niners are. I mean, they have to rebuild their lines, but guess what? They may also need a starting receiver and maybe one of note. And if you could get Teteroa McMillan, who, I haven't seen too many receivers with better ball skills than Teteroa McMillan. This guy just attacks the ball in the air. I mean, he just goes up for it and just rips it out of the sky. I mean, he really attacks the football. He's got this kind of my ball attitude that's really something. And he's 6'4", 6'5", 210 pounds, and I've been told he's going to run like 4.37, 4.38. Well, if that's the case, then yeah, I'm really interested in the Arizona kid. And then Luther Burden, the third, is Deebo. I mean, he's 5'11", 208 pounds. I think he's going to run a great 40. They used him on hitches, they used him on screens, they used him on slants, they used him on all this short stuff. He's a run after the catch monster. He's a rack king. This guy he's 2 steps, full speed. He's spectacular. He's this super tough kid from a tough place. He's from East St. Louis. If you've ever been to East St. Louis, it's a tough place. It's a tough place, and this kid is tough. I mean, I've seen him get starched. Absolute big hits. He just pops right back up. He kind of reminds me of like an Allen Iverson or something like that. He's just one of these guys that's just so damn tough that it's like everybody out there on the field knows he's tough. Like if you ask Niner players, who's the toughest guy on the team, you're going to hear a lot of Greenlaw. In past years, you heard a lot of Kinlaw. But guess whose name also came up a lot? Jawan Jennings. because Jawan Jennings is ridiculously tough. Luther Burden is a Jawan Jennings. He's better. He's way better. But he's a Jawan Jennings kind of a tough guy. He's super tough. You're not going to intimidate him. You're not going to be like, oh, you know what? He's, he pressed man at the line and, we jacked him up at the line and got real physical with him and he disappeared. Nope, that's not Luther Burden. Luther Burden's going to fight you. He's tough as hell. So, yeah, I mean, if they could somehow build up their lines and still get a spectacular receiver at the top of the draft, I would do it. And if you could move off of one of your receivers and add some, I think the receiver room needs to be changed up. I really do. I don't know where you guys are at on that, but I think it needs to be changed up. Not just because of, Deebo's old and Aiyuk's banged up. I mean, I just think that they don't have the guys that they need right now. They don't. I mean, I like Pearsall, but don't tell me Ricky Pearsall is going to dominate the NFL. He's not. I like Cowing, but he's 175 pounds. He needs to get a whole lot stronger. Jawan Jennings is a good chain-moving player. He can catch a lot of big passes on 3rd and 6, but he's not a difference maker. Tetaroa, McMillan, T-Mac, he's a difference maker. Luther Burden is a difference maker. EMA Beat says Luther Burden is a beast, Larry. Not going to lie. Him and that wide receiver Isaiah Bond from Texas, along with Alec Ayamanor from Stanford, would be outstanding additions to the team. If we can get 2 of the 3, Luther Bond would be my preference. Well, I'll say this about Isaiah Bond. I don't know that he probably regrets that he transferred to Texas because, I mean, he just didn't have the kind of year this year that he envisioned himself having. This guy caught the winning pass against Auburn from Jalen Milroe in the Iron Bowl and then transferred to Texas and just kind of evaporated. He wasn't nearly the player that he was at Alabama for the Longhorns. So, my scout friends who have been on campus say, dude, he's going to run 4.26. So watch Isaiah Bond this week in Indy at the Combine. He is going to run an incredible 40 time, but he didn't have a very good year. As far as the Stanford kid, he's big and athletic, but I think there's way better receivers than Alec Ayamanor. But I do love Burden, and I do think Isaiah Bond is a big-time player. I just don't think that the Stanford kid's great. We got this one from Amateur Draft Scout. 49ers will go and get best player available with the first pick, which will upset many people. Hey, let's make this real simple. What do the Niners need more than anything? They need a great player. Great. You don't win Super Bowls by drafting good players. Ricky Pearsall's a good player. They need to draft a great player. Who's drafting great players? The Eagles. You look at that corner they drafted from Toledo. Great. Cooper DeJean. Great. Look at all those. I mean, look at Detroit. They drafted, Penei Sewell, great player. Brian Branch, great player. Aiden Hutchinson, great player. I mean, they keep drafting great players. They just drafted a great young corner from Alabama, Terrion Arnold. Draft great players. I don't care what position they play. Draft great players. You had 13 Pro Bowlers 2 years ago. This year you had 4. You need more great players. Draft great players. I don't care what position they play. You'll figure it out in training camp. Draft great players. If you get to 11 and the best player is a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver. If you get to 11, the best player is a tackle, offensive tackle, draft an offensive tackle. If you get to 11 and the best player is Malachi Starks and he's a free safety, then draft a free safety. Draft great players. That's what Brad Holmes and the Lions have been doing in recent years. They're drafting great players. The Niners are drafting good players and missing on players, and while the Niners are missing and drafting good players, they're drafting great players. You can't go into the draft and be like, we need the best tackle that's on the board at this spot. It's like, no, you need to go figure out who are the greatest players and then figure out how you can go get them. Don't just take, oh, well, he was the highest rated guy on our board. Where is the conviction? I need some conviction that these players are great. Give me some conviction that these players are great. Let's see. We got this one from Steve-O Supremo. It says Rossini's source for the Jets is Woody Johnson, the owner. Really? That's interesting. John B says, I swear the 49ers have the most indecisive front office in the entire league. Hugh Jassel talking about Aiyuk. It was a stupid signing. I agree. It was. They never should have kowtowed to him. Didn't make sense. Did not make sense. Should have traded him when they had the chance. R.C. Yola says, I would trade CMC as well. Wow. I don't see that happening. They seem like they love them some CMC. Invaders like, don't count on it. All right, let's go. We got a few more here. EMA beats Rondale Moore, I love, but he's coming off an ACL. Yeah, but you can get him for nothing. Get him for absolutely nothing. Steve Supremo says Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, free agents. You know, it's funny you mentioned Keenan. Keenan played at Cal. Now, he's a North Carolina kid, but he played collegiately at Cal, which is right here in the Bay Area. And Keenan, you know what? He's a very productive player. It's all about health with him. And if you could get Keenan for 1 year, yeah, that might be reasonable. That might be, Keenan would make sense. Now, Amari Cooper looked terrible in Buffalo. Terrible. David Sluggy Sports says, Larry calls BS. I'm not calling BS. I just don't think that this trade is likely. I don't think it's likely the Niners are going to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Would I like to trade him? Yes, I would. Would I like to trade him and move off the contract and start fresh at wide receiver? Yeah, I would. I'd like to start fresh at wide receiver. Oz says draft Tyler Warren and feed the tights. I'll say this about Tyler Warren. You know, if you do think you don't want to draft another receiver because you got Aiyuk coming back, and you want to help the offense, you could draft a really good receiving tight end, a Colston Loveland, a Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin, and then just go 12 personnel a lot in the first half of the year. I could see that. I could definitely see them adding a weapon that either at running back or tight end because it's not an elite receiver draft. Spy v Spy says, I love BA, probably the best route runner in the league, but what does that matter if you disappear when the guy puts his hands on you? Hugh Jassel, Pearsall and Jennings are better than Aiyuk and Deebo. Well, they probably are going forward. Charlie Higgs, I'd love to get Darius Slayton. You know, the one thing about Darius Slayton is he's a big guy who can run. I mean, we're talking about a guy who runs in the 4.3s, and he's big. And he's played with Daniel Jones in New York for so long that he's never had a good quarterback. He's never had a really good quarterback. He's played with some horrible, horrible quarterbacks. So I think he would love playing with Brock Purdy. Mr. Bacon and Eggs, no one wants a trade for Aiyuk, busted-ass bum. Wow. Jacob Gordon, yeah, we should have traded him. Yep, we got this one from Invader 49er. The wide receiver has outpriced its usefulness. Time to draft them and never pay $30 million for a wide receiver ever again. I mean, if it's Jerry Rice, you know, but I mean, if it's not Jerry Rice, I agree. I don't love paying, you know, the seventh best receiver in football through the nose. We got this one from Bazi Mian. I was wishing we traded Aiyuk for Devontae Adams during his contract talks. We got this one from Steve Supremo. They're moving off of Pickens, talking about the Steelers. How motivated are they to get rid of Pickens? Would you take Pickens doesn't block, is a major diva, has all kinds of attitude problems, and yet if they offered him Pickens tomorrow for one of the Niner receivers, I'd probably say yeah. Just because that's how, you know, Deebo's at the end and Ayuk's broken, and yeah, I think I would do that. Um, let's go further down here, further down. We've got so many chats here. We got a lot of chats, and I appreciate all you guys jumping in on the chats. Let's hit a couple of the supers here. Mark Graves says, member for 32 months. Hey, Mark, I remember when you started. He says, can the NFL stop the cap hit if teams trade money for money like the NBA? No, I don't believe so. I think you take a cap hit, and if you're taking on another player, they don't offset. If that's what you mean, it's not like the NBA. LD Studio says Emeka Egbuka is cold, man. Is cold, man. Him worth Pearsall. I mean, Egbuka is strong. Super strong receiver. He's never been the number one receiver for Ohio State. I don't know that he's ever been the number two, but he is strong. Strong hands, strong body, solid NFL receiver. I don't see superstar. I really don't. I see a solid NFL receiver. Solid NFL receiver. Is he better than Pearsall? Probably. Yeah, he's probably better than Pearsall. Stronger body. Pearsall's probably a little bit better receiver, I think. Too legit to quit. Move on from Aiyuk and replace him with Higgins. I don't know if they can do it, but, man, that would be intriguing. Prapa says, imagine if the Niners had traded Aiyuk and Deebo last offseason. It was obvious to a lot of us. Also, Mel now says McMillan probably goes 12 to early 20s. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying as well, is that, Teteroa McMillan has got great ball skills, and he's an amazing player. Unbelievable hand-eye coordination. And now, for sure, he's going to be there at 11. 6'5", 210. Now, if he runs in the 4.3s, I don't believe it. He'll be there at 11. But if he runs in the 4.3s at that size with those ball skills, God, I mean, it would be so tempting to start your new receiver room with that guy. Not to mention, his teammate in college was Jacob Cowing. Not that that means anything, but, I mean, these guys played together at Arizona. I asked Jacob about him this year, and he's like, oh, yeah, the guy's amazing. The guy's absolutely amazing. He high points all these passes. He makes all these plays. He's a red zone monster. If McMillan goes to Indy this week at 6'5" and 210 or 212 or whatever he's going to weigh, if he runs in the sub 4.4s, wow. I think that means he's going to go in front of the Niners, but we'll have to see. Receivers sometimes get pushed down, especially if what the other rumors coming out of Indy are true, which is that Jackson Dart could go in the top 10. Saw that this week. If you have Jackson Dart in the top 10 and, you've got three quarterbacks in the top 10, that could push a receiver right down into the lap of the Niners or somebody else. But, we're talking about McMillan here. I think he could fall to the Niners if, indeed, Jackson Dart goes in the top 10. Charles Lemp says, take a page off the Eagles, fix the O-line and draft with in the draft with Membu and a free agent like Drew Dahlman. Fix the defense in the draft, run the ball, and use play action. Yeah, I kind of agree. There's you definitely need to upgrade your O-line, your D-line, your linebacking core. The Niners need a 15-player draft badly. Justin says, Tyler Booker, 3-year starter at left guard for Bama, only one sack given up on his career. I wouldn't mind him at 11. Imagine Williams, Booker, Dahlman, Pooney. Yeah, you know what? If you're really, really serious about improving the O-line, that's what you would do. You would sign Dahlman. You would draft a guy like Booker. I agree with you, Justin. Tyler Booker is 330 pounds. He's one of the safest players in this entire draft. He is a road grading run dominator. I mean, this guy's devastating in the run game. He's huge and powerful. He's quite a bit better than the last year's Alabama player. Booker is plug and play. Put him at left guard. He'd be there for the next 15 years. I mean, you could start right there. Hey, our new revamped line is Pooney and Booker at the guard spots. But, once again, it's a guard, but he's a dominant guard. That's the other thing. It's like, you don't draft a guard that high. Yeah, you don't draft a random guard. But would you draft Quentin Nelson? Yeah, you would. And this guy is damn good. Now, I don't know if he's Quentin Nelson, but he's a power road grading monster. The Niners can't run the ball inside the 5 right now. If they had Tyler Booker, they would be able to. PDX Niner draft free agent call-in show. I want to hear fans' thoughts. I can do that. You guys want to hear? You want some? You guys want a couple of calls? We can do some calls. Let's see. We'll just copy that. We'll put it in the chat. Anybody who wants to jump in, there you go. So right there, I put it in the chat. Let's see exactly where it is. Make sure that we have it in there. Chat's moving pretty quick, but I think it's in there. Let me try it again. I think it's in there. Wait. There it is. There it is. The Krug Show. So at 11:47, it's in the chat, and I will put it again in the chat for those who want to jump in. There we go. Copy the link. Put it in the comments. Paste it. Bingo. There we go. It's in there twice. So if anybody wants to jump in via the call, via the video calls, I'll say this. I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I don't do a lot of video calls, but in some ways, it's one of my favorite parts of being on YouTube is the video calls. I mean, I really love it in football season when we, like it's maybe a playoff game or something. Hey, how you guys feeling? And then we start talking to Niner fans, and we got a Niner fan in Tucson. We got a Niner fan in Maryland. We got a Niner fan in Virginia, and the guy's calling from Texas. And dude, I love it. I absolutely love it. That to me is in some ways some of my favorite shows that we've ever done is when we take calls. Because there's something about calls, video calls, that are better than audio calls. I did radio for 25, 30 years. I love taking calls, but in this scenario, in this, YouTube, you can see the people. And it just makes it, I think it makes it a whole lot better. So if anybody wants to jump in, feel free. We got LD Studios. We're only going to go for a few more minutes, but if anybody wants to jump in. LD Studios says, hey, $1.99. Thank you, LD. Franco. What's up, Franco? He says, hey, Krug, what do you think of DJ Giddens from K-State? It's so funny because I had Matt Miller from ESPN on the KMBR show a few weeks ago, and I'm like, man, there's a ton of backs in this draft, starting with Ashton Gianti and Omarion Hampton. Some people love Scatabo. Kev, I know, loves Caleb Johnson. Niners met with Dylan Sampson, who was so productive this year at Tennessee. The Buckeye duo of Travion and Quinshawn. Both those guys are phenomenal. Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, R.J. Harvey was prolific. And Matt Miller says, I love DJ Giddens, who's 6'1", 212 pounds, played for K-State. He's just got great cutting ability. The jump cuts on DJ Giddens are just off the charts, man. I really like him. I really like him a lot. That would be a very, very good pick for the 49ers at whatever round. I'm not sure exactly what round, probably the mid-rounds. But yeah, DJ Giddens, the jump cuts are so explosive. His change of direction, so powerful. He's just, this is a great running back draft. I think this is one of the best running back drafts in a long, long time. I love this running back draft. I just named a bunch of guys, and those aren't even my favorite guys. My favorite guys are further down the list. Brashard Smith from SMU. What an athlete. What an athlete he is. Kyle Monungai from Rutgers. The contact balance at 5'9", 210 is just off the charts. Raheem Sanders from South Carolina. He's 6 feet, he's 224 pounds, and he's super fast. That guy, nobody should be that fast at that size. Raheem Sanders is the real deal. Taj Brooks from Texas Tech is a bowling ball. He's 5'10", 230. Love him. Bashul Tutin, if you're the Niners and you need a return man in addition to a running back, Bashul Tutin is a great return man. He's going to run 4.32. So, I love him. Marcus Yarns from Delaware, who had the, Delaware, they wear the kind of the Michigan version of the helmet, the white Michigan helmet, sort of. That kid, Yarns, is big time player. Donovan Edwards from Michigan's a player. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt was the MVP of the Shrine Game. The Arizona kid's 5'10", 210 pounds. Jaden Blue's a good running back for Texas. Trevor Etienne's a good running back for Georgia. Jaquindon Jackson is a big back for Arkansas. I really like him. Mario Anderson from Memphis. Guys, you got to go check out Mario Anderson. Super bow-legged. And he guy's got some issues, right? He spit on somebody last year, and that's not good. But he's 5'9", 210, and just powerful. Love Mario Anderson as a runner. Montrell Johnson. Love him from University of Florida. Ulysses Bentley IV. Love him from Ole Miss. Quentin Cooley from Liberty. Another bowling ball back. 5'7", 220. Jalen White from Georgia Southern's a good back. I mean, this is a great running back draft. There are going to be really good running backs that aren't even drafted this year. That's how good the running back draft is. Really, really good running back draft. Boxing fan times 4. Who do you see as a generational talent in this draft? Ooh, that's a good question. Generational talent. Well, let's talk about that for a second. Who's a generational talent? You know, somebody who's well, first of all, I'm a real believer in Cam Ward. Okay, so I believe in Cam Ward. I love Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is a really good NFL quarterback. He reminds me of Lamar. Cam Ward's got some magic to him, man. He's tough. He's smart. He takes chances. I think Cam Ward is a very good quarterback. Shador, don't like Shador. But Cam Ward, I really like. Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. He's a corner. He's a receiver. He's a legitimate two-way player. Now, he's probably going to play corner, but I see Jalen Ramsey. You know, to me, he's a difference maker for sure. He's a generational player. This Will Campbell, this gigantic tackle from LSU, I think he's got potential to be a 15-year player in the NFL. Just a 6'6", 325. I see a kind of like a Tony Baselli type player. I think he could be a generational player. You know, Will Johnson, people are comparing him to Surtain and saying he's the total package. I didn't see enough of him this year because he was hurt, but obviously he's very highly rated. Teteroa McMillan's interesting from the standpoint of he's so big with such great ball skills. He was a former volleyball player. Some people think he doesn't have very good 40 time. He doesn't have very good vertical. This week's going to tell us a lot about McMillan. If he tests out like an elite athlete, he could be a generational type player. Abdul Carter, I think, is a very safe player. I see a better, maybe not as good a player, but a better person than Micah Parsons. But a Micah Parsons type player. Mason Graham, I think, is a really good player, really highly rated. Tyler Warren, Ashton Gianti, I think these are the generational players. I actually think Luther Burden's really, really special too. Malachi Starks, I think, is going to be one of the best free safeties to come into the league in a long time. Love him. And then as far as, is there anybody in the back of the first round that, for whatever reason, is overlooked? Walter Nolan and Jalon Walker are two guys that I really like. Jalon Walker is just, he's maybe the fastest player in college football. I mean, I'd love to see what he's going to run. I think he's going to run low 4.4s. I mean, he's a edge rusher / stacked linebacker. He's close to 250 pounds, but he's one of the greatest athletes I've seen at linebacker. This guy's, he's really good against the run. He's raw as a pass rusher, but he can beat you with speed. He's good in coverage. He's smart. He's instinctive. He's tough. I think Jalon Walker is a NFL Defensive Player of the Year award type candidate. I think he's really spectacular. And Walter Nolan, it's just a matter of how much does he want it? He was a 5-star coming out. This guy's talent is right there with the greatest talents there are. He's 300 pounds. He can rush the passer. I kind of think Kenneth Grant is a really, really special player as well. I would say, I mentioned already that Booker is just an absolute monster as a road grading guard. I would say that's probably it. That I don't see anybody, Josh Simmons could play 10 years in the NFL. Who's a really good player who I'm interested to see him work out this week is Jedi Barron. the Thorpe Award winner who played for Texas. I mean, he's a corner, but he's tough and he's physical and he's a hitter. And Jedi Barron, I think, is going to be a really, really good player. Generational, no, but he's a really, really good player. I hope I answered that question. We got Franco's in the house. What's up, Franco?
What's up, crew?
What's going on, man? How are you? How's your day going?
It's going
You're in
good.
Bakersfield, right? Bakersfield?
No, we are in San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. There you go.
Out
High desert, right?
Yeah, high desert area, SoCal.
How's your Tuesday going, man?
It's going good, man. Just relaxing, day off. So tapping in a little bit of Krug show.
Dude, you're a loyal subscriber and a regular. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
What do you think of the story of the day that Diana Rossini is reporting that teams are at least calling the Niners kicking tires on the availability of Brandon Aiyuk? It doesn't seem like it's gonna lead to a deal because of the cap hit, but it is interesting that they're calling, and it makes you wonder if the Niners put any feelers out there. And there's been an awful lot of speculation about Niners not loving that contract and not loving Aiyuk and this and that. What do you make of it?
I mean, we all know how the rumor hill works. You know what I'm saying? It's funny, the sequencing of this things, how it just came out that, some people in the organization feel that it was a bad idea to sign Aiyuk. And then here we go. Here comes the report saying that teams are poking around trying to figure out if they could find a deal with him. It's like, I don't know, man. Me personally, I think that we probably shouldn't have signed him, but we did. So we can't. It already happened. So we gotta figure out a way to make it work with him, And then if he just doesn't come back the same, then that's what I feel in this draft. We got to take a wide out. We got to get some more depth because we just don't know what we're gonna get with Aiyuk. And we got some guys in the draft, man, like guys like Trey Harris, guys like Savion, these guys who can come in and really fill a role for us. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting, but we'll see what happens.
It's hard because, like, first of all, rookies are a risk, right? You never know. And then rookie receivers are even more of a risk. Now, this year, you had 4 or 5 rookie receivers all go for 1,000 yards, but that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And most years, that's not going to happen. Now, this year, though, I do believe that McMillan from Arizona and Burden from Missouri are special receivers. I think those guys are really special. And you named Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris is to me, it's T-Mac, it's Burden, and then it's Trey Harris. And then there's a gigantic divide. I mean, a huge chasm there, and then the 4th best receiver. So, if you can get McMillan or Burden or Trey Harris, I say do it, because I think those guys can all step in right away and impact you in a positive way and help you get to the Super Bowl. The rest of the receivers, there's some that I like more than others, but I don't know that I've got the conviction that they're going to step in as rookies and do it. You know what I mean?
I'm curious. What do you see when you watch T-Mac? What do you see? For me, I kind of see like some Mike Evans. I'm curious to see, what do you see when you watch T-Mac?
I see. Well, I mean, okay. First of all, it's hard to say, right? Because it's a little unfair because we don't know exactly his physical profile yet.
Right.
We're going to find that out this week. But if this guy runs in sub 4.4 at this size and these ball skills, I dare to say Megatron. That's what I see. I see Calvin Johnson. I see a 6'5", 210-pound receiver who can high point the ball, who attacks it in the air, who's got great ball skills and sub 4.4 speed. Yeah. So I see Megatron, and with Luther Burden, I see kind of a faster version of Deebo.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine compared Luther Burden the third to Malik Neighbors. He says he's Malik Neighbors. So those are 2 pretty good comps there, for sure.
Yeah, I see that, and then I think going with the tight ends, I think the tight end, we have to get a tight end in this draft. Yes, Kittle's good, but we have to stay ahead of these issues of Kittle getting older, and, that we need to change the offense more around Brock and not what Jimmy had. So I think there's some guys in this draft. I like Arroyo. I like Arroyo a lot. Mitchell.
The report on him was that he moves like a jumbo wide receiver at 6'4", 250. He was great in Mobile.
Yep.
He's not going to work out in Indy this week.
He's
He's going to wait for the pro day at Coral Gables. But yeah, I mean, it's a great tight end draft. Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Harold Fannin, Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm, Mitchell Evans, Aronde Gadsden, Benjamin Urasek, Caden Prieskorn from Ole Miss.
Yep.
Jackson Hawes, I think, fits the Niners really well. Why? Because he went to Yale. He's super smart. Carter Runyon from Towson's a good player. Rivaldo Fairweather from Auburn's a good player. Conyers from Texas Tech's a good player. I mean, there's a lot of good tight ends. I totally agree with you. The Niners have to come out of this draft with at least one tight end. It's too good of a draft for tight ends.
There's too many. Exactly.
Yeah.
I just feel like, especially for the style that we like to use them, like there's guys out there that could fill that role for us.
No question. No question. And then also, I think, because it's not a great receiver draft and it's an awesome running back draft, I think you may want to take a couple running backs late in the draft and see if they wind up being five. You got 5 eligibles, right?
Yep.
And maybe you draft a sleeper running back, and you use CMC flexed out and use him as a receiver. CMC's got that kind of talent.
I like that a lot. Yeah, and I had mentioned Giddens. The reason why I like Giddens because, like you had said, there's so many good backs in this draft that, man, Giddens could drop. I mean, if you could catch Giddens in like the 4th or 5th round, man, that'd be a steal.
I think he is. I mean, okay, I'm looking at the ratings. Now, granted, it's just one place's ratings, but they list him at 137 overall.
Mm-hmm.
So 137, in the 60s is round 2. In the 90s would be round 3. So yeah, we're talking about 4th or 5th round for DJ Giddens.
Yeah, I'm telling you, can fall
late 4th, early 5th.
Yeah, I mean his cut, like you said, his cutting ability, his vision. I think he's good, man. I'm an SC fan, so I'm always throwing Woody Marks. Like Woody Marks,
he's a good player too. I didn't even mention him. You're talking about the kid from SC. His name's Jaquavius, right? Yeah, I mean he's 5'10", 215 pounds. But what I love about him is he can catch the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, he can catch the ball. He was a transfer too.
Yep.
Didn't he start at Mississippi State and transfer?
Yeah, man. It doesn't fumble. Super reliable.
Yeah, smart kid too. Academic honor roll. Really good football player. Yeah, that would be a good one. That's probably a day 3 type pick, but that could be a very good day 3 pick. I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, bro. You got anything else for us? We want to get to Alex before we get out of here.
On the D line, you had mentioned Shamar Stewart. Like that. I like that. Shamar
Stewart.
Yep.
From A&M.
In that D line, there's so many good guys that sometimes, the guys that are just as good can kind of fall because there's so much other good talent that are making those plays. And so I feel like Shamar is going to fall in. What is he, 6'6"?
Oh, he's awesome. He's 6'5", 280.
Yeah.
He's 6'5", 285, and he's lean and fast. I mean, he didn't have more than 1.5 sacks in any season. So a lot of people are like, oh, he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. But that's not true. He played on a line that was loaded. He was a 5-star recruit out of Miami. Right. And he led them in pressures. But they also had Scourton, and they had Shamar Turner, and they had other guys on that front. I think Shamar Stewart is going to be there. If I were the Niners, that would be another guy. Okay, you get to 11, you want to go D-line. Maybe you trade from 11 to 15 or 16, see if you can add a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and then you take Shamar Stewart.
I like that.
I think Shamar Stewart is going to be awesome. He went to Monsignor Pace Academy for high school. Only reason I know all these things because he was an A&M guy, but he was he was a 5-star high school prospect. I mean, they love this guy. He was like he played basketball and football in high school, and then went to A&M and got the top newcomer award his first year. Played 3 years there. Started 12 games this year at defensive end. Led the team with 7 quarterback hurries. Was top 5 on the team with 5.5 TFLs. Wow. He didn't get home with a lot of sacks. but they nominated him for the defensive trenches award at the end of the year banquet. I think Shamar Stewart, he's just too big and too fast. I mean, 6'6", a legit 280, and he's probably going to run in the 4.5s.
Yeah.
I mean, if this guy runs 4.59 at 280, I would just take him right there at 11. I'd just take him right there. I wouldn't even trade back. Just take him at 11.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, what's his injury history though? Does he get injured?
No, I mean, he's a physical specimen. I mean, he's one of the best athletes in all of college football. No, I think he's been pretty healthy. It's just a matter of, they played a bunch of teams this year where the ball came out really fast. And so it was almost like other teams know that, they got a pretty big time line. Scourton was great at Purdue.
Yep.
Shamar Turner was a 5-star. Shamar Stewart's a 5-star. So they have a great defensive line. So teams that played them knew they had a great defensive line and got rid of the ball really quickly and didn't give their D-line a chance to feast. And then A&M offensively, they tried Wegeman early, the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Marcel, who's way, way, way better. But they just didn't beat team. They didn't get big leads on teams. Yeah. Team D linemen that get sacks have to have, you gotta have a lead.
Yeah.
And A&M played from behind. They played a lot of close games. We didn't have that kind of sack.
We played him in the bowl game. SC played him, and we just dimed him out. We just quick
SC beat him.
Ball. So
yeah, I mean, A&M was disappointing this year, but Stewart is a beast. And I think that he's one of the very few guys that I would honestly say I think for sure he's better as a pro than he will be as a college player.
Yeah, he's got the ability, man, for sure.
All right, Franco, have a good night. Or have a good day, I should say. And normally we do this stuff at night. Have a good day. Good to hear from you, man. Take care up in High Desert. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, thanks for taking my call.
There you go, Franco. Should we go to Alex? Alex, do you got a camera, bud? There we go. What's up, Alex? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Where are you calling from?
I'm actually calling from campus.
Where do you go to school?
Columbia. I've actually been on the show twice. While, Kevin.
Sorry.
Kevin was on the. No worries. I know you're busy, but yeah, no, it's I wanted to get your insight. Who would you sign to raise our defensive edge floor? Because what I kind of want to do is have Sam O and Rob B as kind of practice squadmen. So I'm thinking of signing two pretty solid defensive edges. So who if you could choose any two defensive edge, who would you choose?
Well, you talking about in the draft? Or are you talking about in the free agency?
Free agency. Yeah, because the Niners only go over for vets.
Yeah, let me type in NFL free agents and take a look at the list.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the one that's super intriguing, and I'm sure you've probably already thought about this, but Joey Bosa.
Right.
If you can get Joey Bosa out of LA, and it sounds like he could be a cap casualty, he might be willing to play here. So that would be one. Okay, so let's take a look though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking this. You can go on Spot Track and take a look at all these guys, and then you type in unrestricted. Okay, so I'm looking at the list: Khalil Mack, Hassan Reddick, Matt Judon, DeMarcus Lawrence, Preston Smith. Okay, a lot of people are suggesting the Niners go after after Josh Sweat because he's young. Josh Sweat because he plays for the Eagles and he's young.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 27. I definitely would prefer to get a younger defensive lineman. Charles Omenihu is a free agent.
I saw that.
He's an interesting one. Let me look further down the list here. I'm looking. Oh well, they list Zach Bond. There's the Niners have the third best odds for Zach Bond. I'll give you a couple names that I really like. To me, the guy that was in Seattle that got traded to the Bears last year, Darrell Taylor. Darrell Taylor. I like Darrell Taylor from Tennessee. He's only 28 or 27 right now. I love the way he comes flying off the edge. I also like Josh Uche who is now with Kansas City, got
Yeah.
traded from New England. I think Ushi
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Ushi's young too. He's 26. But I love Daryl
Yeah.
Taylor. I think Daryl Taylor, he was on a Bears team that didn't get a lead very much. But if you just, I'll give you another one I love, Aziz Ojolari.
Oh, me too. Me too. I want to sign him.
Yeah, Aziz Ojolari from right there in your neck of the woods with the
Mhm.
G-men, right? This guy's
The
only
Giants.
24. His brother BJ plays for the Cardinals.
Mhm.
Aziz Ojolari was really good at Georgia,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, they've had Kayvon Thibodeau, they've had other
Mhm.
guys. For whatever reason, he hasn't gotten it rolling. But Aziz
Definitely.
Ojolari has got major upside. Another guy that I really like is Joseph Osai for Cincinnati,
Uh-huh.
who had that late hit on Mahomes a couple years ago on the sidelines that
Oh
cost
yeah.
Cincinnati that playoff game. But I
Yeah. It was
like
rough.
Osai. I also kind of think Malcolm Kuntz from the
Mhm.
Raiders is a steal. He's 26. He only
Mhm.
made $1.2 million this last year. Those are the ones that stand out to me. I'm looking further down the list. There's some guys who are hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I like
yeah,
Aziz Ojulari because he'd be like really good for like the cap, and he's young too.
I'll give you one more that I really like, and
Mhm.
it's a little ordering off the menu. But you
Mhm.
know how the Cardinals had Baron Browning, and they took him
Yeah.
from an outside linebacker, stacked backer, and they played him at defensive end.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of these defensive ends, some of these stacked backers that don't have great instincts, but they're great physically, are
Yeah.
guys that you want to pick up. And the guy
Uh-huh.
that the Jets picked up from the Commanders, Jamin Davis,
Yeah.
is he only made $1 million last year. He's only 26, but he's a little on the undersized
Yeah.
area, but he's a great athlete, and
Mhm.
I would take a chance on a guy like that as just a low cost free agent. But yeah, I would say Jamin Davis. Looking back up the list now, Kuntz, Osai, but my favorites would be
Mhm.
Ojolari, Aziz Ojolari, and Joe Tryon. I think is
Yeah.
a good one too from Tampa Bay. Who played out UW. Joe
Mhm.
Tryon
Go try him.
Shawinka, I think his name is.
Gotcha.
I like him for
Uh-huh.
sure. Daryl Taylor, though, I think is the sleeper because Daryl
Yeah.
Taylor's only 27. He's already washed out with Seattle, and
Uh-huh.
he was with the Bears, but he wasn't great with the Bears.
Mhm.
I think he's a steal. I mean,
Definitely.
they're younger guys. Josh Sweat's going to cost you a ton,
Oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah, he's already
It's going to
making over
cost you a
10
ton.
million. He's
Same
like
with
the highest
Khalil
one. Uh-huh.
Mack. Same with Hassan Reddick. If I could get Joey Bosa in a trade at a
Uh-huh.
reasonable or as a cap casualty, you sign him maybe to a reasonable amount. As long
Yeah.
as he's kind of reasonable, I think I'd start with Joey and then try
Yeah.
to get Daryl Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I feel like if we could have Joey as like a rotational DN, mix him in there with like Floyd and stuff, because I feel like this season when I was watching the game, they were like overusing like Floyd and Bosa. Like their snap counts were like through the roof. And I think we just need to get more bodies. Like
I
I
agree.
was like, yeah, I took 2022 the defensive line for granted. Like we were just so stacked that year, and it was just so sad. Like I remember watching the NFC game with like my friend, and like we were just shocked when Brock went down, and like the fucking sorry, but when what's his name? Like our fourth string QB, Josh Johnson,
Josh
like
Johnson.
yeah, Josh Johnson when TMC scored the touchdown, we are like, "Oh my god, we actually might do this." Like then we just got wrecked cuz like, Josh got a concussion and stuff. I was just like, "God, it was so saddening." And then like last year, yeah, it is what it is,
Okay,
but
Alex, I got
yeah.
one trivia question for you.
Mhm. Yeah, send
Can
him my way.
you name the
Uh-huh.
Columbia defensive lineman who made it to the NFL and then went on ESPN and had his own show on
I
ESPN?
know I fumbled this one last time. I completely forgot it. I ain't gonna lie.
It's Marcellus Wiley. Marcellus
Yeah.
Wiley went to Columbia. What are you studying at Columbia, by the way?
Oh, I'm studying nutrition. Tell John Lynch that if he wants to add a sports nutrition fellow to the athletic staff, he's gonna get a first round, first overall draft pick out of nutrition.
When do you graduate? When do you
Oh,
graduate?
this May, I'm actually graduating, getting my credentials, and like I'm so ready. Like it's been a minute. Like it's been well needed. I've done like countless rotations, like internships here at Columbia. Right now I'm at a clinic, so it's like getting different, experiences, and then using that to like, in my future, because like, like with the Ricky Pearsall injury, you're gonna want to like apply some a little bit like gunshot wound, like nutrition therapy for like that situation. You're like recovering from an injury. Like I recovered from so many injuries, and like, you can get back to like, your where you were in the past. And like the thing that surprised me this season is that like how did Javon Hargrave not come back like later in the season? Like, I know he tore his tricep, but like I think there was like another defensive lineman in the Eagles who like came back from a tore tricep. So I was just like you're making over like 20 million, it's like that should be like a 2 month like recovery, and you should be back at least late in the season. He could have been back for the Rams game, maybe I had a shot in the playoffs, but it's whatever, It's probably like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, everybody's got a different pain threshold, as you can imagine. By the
Exactly.
way, we're looking at the sky there in New York. It doesn't look too cold, huh? Pretty
Oh
pretty
yeah,
nice day.
pretty nice day. Yeah, no, it was cold like last week. It's like kind of like bipolar, like the weather here. Like it could be like really cold like one week and then be amazing the next week. It all depends on the wind, really. And like
Where are
there's
you
like
from, man? Are you a California guy? Or are you where are you
yes,
from?
I'm actually from Davis. I'm from
Oh,
Davis, so
nice. Davis
yeah.
High School.
Davis High, UC Davis for undergrad. Now
Nice,
I'm at
nice,
Columbia for masters, and like, yeah, it's been going good. I really
good man.
love the education journey. Just taking, it's my last semester, so I'm just like really taking like every like
Enjoy it,
moment
man.
for yeah,
Yeah, try to
exactly.
enjoy it. Try to enjoy it. I'll say this: I went to Sac State. My wife went to
Nice.
Davis. My daughter went to Davis.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a big fan of Davis. My older
Oh yeah,
sister
it's the
went to
best.
Davis. I had two sisters who went to Davis. My wife went to
Mhm.
Davis, and my daughter went to Davis. I went to Sac
Oh,
State.
nice.
I went to Sac State because I was not as smart, but more of a hustler.
Yeah. It doesn't really
But
matter where you go. Like, it's honestly like who you know, because like,
yeah,
yeah, it's
it
like,
really is true. Really is true.
yeah.
Hey, man, we'll do this. Keep in touch. Were you joking or are you serious? Do you want to work for the Niners?
Oh,
Do you want to work?
that was my goal all along, bro. Like, literally, kind of coming into like nutrition. That was like my own goal, to be like a dietitian for like the NFL and stuff,
Yeah.
specifically a Niner. I've been a Niner fan all my life, like I want
Well,
to win a
here's what you
Super
do.
Bowl
Let me
with
give you
them.
some advice. Let me give you some
Yeah.
advice.
Yep.
What you got to do is you got to write.
Uh-huh.
You got to send an email or a letter
Hmm.
to John Lynch with your resume and a cover letter telling him who you are, where you go to school, what you seek, and how
Uh-huh.
passionate you are about it. And then you just got to
Definitely.
follow up. You just got to follow up. You got to follow up. You got to follow up. You got to walk that line between being persistent and being a stalker, right? It's like
Exactly.
you don't want to be a stalker, but you do want to be
You gotta
persistent.
play cool.
You got to play it cool. You got to play it, but at the same time, you got to let people know what you want, man.
Exactly. You gotta be assertive.
Nobody's gonna break into your apartment and make you go
Hmm.
work for the Niners. If you want to
Exactly.
do it,
You gotta get up,
you're gonna have to put that out there and make a lot of calls
put in
and
that
let them
work.
know. But I'll say this, man, you got you went to a great college.
Hmm.
You're getting your master's at a
Hmm.
phenomenal university.
Hmm.
You're going to be above the list, the masses. So all I
Definitely.
would say is be consistent, be persistent, and just don't be afraid to tell people what you want in this world. And let them tell you no. Or let them tell you, hey, you know what? Maybe they have something where they're looking for a prerequisite of, hey, we'd like you to work at a college, or hey, we'd like you
Hmm.
to work for a football team for a semester. I mean, then at least you could find out. You want to get on their radar,
Hmm.
find out where they hire and what their track is, and
Hmm.
then just get on that track and just keep knocking, man. And if there's
Definitely.
anything I can do for you, let me know. I'll gladly, give you a reference if I can help you in any way. Let me know. But
Definitely. Thank you.
man,
Appreciate it,
just
bro.
keep it rolling. We're gonna end it right here, but
Uh,
appreciate you, man. Have a great day
mhm.
in New York and go
Yep.
Niners.
Go Niners, bro. We're gonna win the bowl soon.
There you go. Alex, have a good day, man.
You too.
Peace, bro. There you go. Very cool. Very cool. Some of my favorite parts of this is why I like video calls. Do you see why I like video calls? Because there's people living their life, and yet we're all connected through YouTube and his connection to the Niners and to the channel, and he's sitting there in New York getting ready to go to class at Columbia. And is he listening to WFAN? No. Is he listening to radio? No. He's listening to YouTube. And anyway, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I just wanted to say this is a very cool thing community-wise. Paul Gentile says, great advice, Larry. Yeah. The one thing I do have some experience is like, when you do some people, like my brother went to law school, my sister went to law school. I scouted football players in the NFL and in the Canadian League, and then eventually worked my way up in media, and got away from scouting. But it's like the road less traveled, and it's not as easy as just, hey, do great in school and they'll just hand you the job. No, you won't just be handed the job, but you have to find out what you want. I would say this. I'll give one last bit of advice before we jet. Do some informational interviewing. If there's somebody that has a job that you want, call them up, tell them that you would love it if they would take 10 minutes with you to give you an informational interview so you can talk to them about how they got ahead. And you do 3 or 4 of these, and you're going to figure out your path and what you need to do and where you need to be. And I have 4 kids of my own. I have a 23-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 14-year-old. It's very, very difficult. I mean, I will say this to all of you. It's very difficult to transition from I'm a college student, even a good college student, even a college student that's at Columbia getting a master's. It's hard to transition from I'm a college student to I'm now in my field and working in my field and making enough to buy a house and get married and build a family and have everything that maybe my mom and dad or my grandparents had. It's very, very challenging. It's very, very challenging. Is it impossible? No. But you have to have a game plan. The Niners play on Sunday. They don't just show up, right? They don't. They don't just show up. They have a game plan. And their game plan's based on all kinds of things, but they show up with a plan. And all I would say to all of you, if you're looking to get ahead in whatever field it is, develop a plan. And the best way to develop a plan is talk to people that are already doing what you want to do. Ask them about their path. How did you get here? Oh, did you have a master? No, I didn't get a master's. I actually volunteered here. And you might find that it would change your life forever. So, do informational interviews. Seek out the people that have the jobs that you want to have. Yeah, is there time limited? Yeah, and just be cognizant of that. But then see if you can get on their radar, talk to them for a few minutes, and develop a game plan. Another thing I would say is if you're going to college, get a great degree, but then take a semester and do some internships and get out there and go see the job that you think you want to do. Go look at that job face up and see if it's actually what you want to do. Because the only thing worse than not getting the job is getting the job but realizing you don't want it. So that's all I said. That's all I would say is just informational interview. And Clutch says referring a random caller. No, he's not random. He's called a few times on the show, and obviously I would find out more from him before I would just say, oh yeah, take we'd have to go through several conversations. But yeah, that would be my plan. That would be my suggestion. I thought I wanted to be a TV sportscaster until I worked with Grant Napier, who was a TV sportscaster in college. And I realized, you know what? He's just reading off a screen and it's not really my thing. I'd rather be on radio. And then I did a radio internship and I'm like, yeah, I like radio. And then I just kind of fell into it. So anyway, there you go. That's going to do it for us today. Hope everybody has a good day. Join me tonight at 6 o'clock for Niners Nightly. We're going to talk more about Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel and how the Niner fans view the Niner receivers. John Chapman is going to be my guest tonight on Niners Nightly. So check that out. He'll be on at 6:15. I'll be on from 6 to 7. There you go. And Sal says, Larry, nothing easy, but anything can be done. Inspired. Yeah, man. The one thing, if I can ever inspire anybody, I feel, hey, job well done. Jacob Gordon. Grant does a lot more than that. He was wronged at KHTK and with the Kings. Grant's a great guy. Grant's a terrific guy. And we're still friends to this day. In fact, I got to call him and get him on because we haven't talked to him in a while. Somebody had something in here about their daughter. I just wanted to see if I could find that. Oh, yeah, here we go. Sal. Just inspired my daughter, Larry, the best. That's what we're looking to do, man. Inspire young people and have a little fun and talk some sports. All right, everybody hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm. More people find us. If you hit subscribe, every time we do go live, you'll get the ding on your phone that says, hey, Krug's going live. Don't miss it. So hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Sharp Corner, Sports Cards and Collectibles. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Oh, wait a second. What happened? There. There. Cam, what are we having? We're having cam problems. Hold on. Now we got the secondary cam. Now we're going to have to change the cam. Let's see. Something's going on with the camera. Oh, there we go. Hey, like that, we're back. All right. Thanks to everybody. We'll do it live. Thank you. Invader 49er says, how's Kenneth Grant's stamina? You know what? I love Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant is exactly the defensive tackle the Niners need. If it was me, I think I would probably move back from 11 into the mid-teens and draft Kenneth Grant, start my draft there. And then there's some undersized linebackers I really like in day 3, David Benda, Chandler Martin, Demetrius Knight, Eugene Asante. I mean, there's some really good undersized linebackers, but they have to be covered up. And that means you need guys like Kenneth Grant. So I love Kenneth Grant. That's a good one right there. Anyway, that is going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Thanks to Mancini's once again. Click the link or go to sleepworld.com. Find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in any of Mancini's stores, use that code KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off your total purchase. KRUG10 at sleepworld.com or in any of Mancini's locations. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you for jumping in and participating. It was fun to take the video calls. Until next time, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you